Hi, welcome, and welcome to the streaming of Add Types to Enquirer Part 11. Okay, so, well, without further ado, let's get back to it. Originally, I set it to start at um, 5 p.m., but things comes up, so yeah, so now I'm starting at 5:30. So now we're back to the code. So in part 10, we have typed the input question. So according to what we seen from the README. So although there are some slight problems, essentially get all of the types, the basic stuff in there. So now let's get the other few basic one in quickly. Okay. So besides this input, right? So let's take a look at here. So these are the built-in, but so within this, among this built-in, we have this input which we have seen is a string, and there's also this confirm and numeral. So this numeral is obviously is a number, while confirm is a boolean, right? So they should be very similar. So let's work on that too. By easily over here, just copy it and change all of this. One more to this. Let's do a confirm first, right? So uh, so this is the confirm. Let's take a look at over here. And let's see if there's any existing test for that. The one that we have commented out, the one we commented out have this input, and they are both using input. So is there any confirm one that being used? Nope. Let's find confirm. Type confirm. Well, that's the code that I just added in. And then we have the confirm prompt, but really it doesn't really have any test for the type confirm. So the easiest way to find out is, well, let's do that. Confirm over here, and then question. Let's keep the same question. Although this really doesn't really matter, right? So let's try this out. Node test JS, right? So it's false and it works. So first we confirm that the type is a string confirm. So that's what we are going to add, right? So confirm question. And then that one is just the same as the input. And then of course with some of them changed to Boolean, right? So of course we are not going to just go ahead and change it like that, right? We're going to extract it out. All right, so what we're going to do next is to create a common base class or common base type, a generic one. Over here, again, we already have this, right? We already have this, but you can see that it have some extra things over here. Have this default, have this value, and well, we don't want to mix the two together, as we have seen there are some this inconsistency between the two, how they are being used. So what we are going to do here is just extract the base, right? Because over here you can see the name and the message is, well, it's the same, and then all of this is the same except the type are different, right? So let's say typed question E equals to that. And then this is still Boolean initial, so this is where the types comes in. So here, this one, so these are T, and then these are also T, and same as here, right? And then the return value of this is the same. This is T, and this is T, right? Because this is the result, while the format is formatting the display, which is string, right? So then this is an error because we over there we make sure that the types are prompt values, prompt types. I recall prompt values, but let's go there and take a look. Or it's answer. We set it to answer. So over here, just need to do the same. Okay. So I'm not going to put in the default type in there because when you do that, you can easily be, accidentally adding some errors in the code. Say when you just use the type question type without putting in the default the generic type, and then it default to whatever is set here in which doesn't match with your expectation. So adding the default type only when you know that the user is going to use it the way that it is expected, or put it in another way, you do that. You assign the type typically at the top level when the user is a type that the user actually use. So over here is just type question, and then for confirm, this is Boolean. And then so for the input, it's a string. Okay, and then of course here this is now confirm. Okay, so now with that, supposedly this will go through. Let's see, string is not assigned to type never. What happened? Let's take a quick look. Oh, it's not an and, it's an or. Okay. So now you see that these are errors. The reason is because the initial is wrong, right? Because for confirm, the initial won't be blue. It would be true or false. And as we've seen, if you don't provide any initial, the initial is false. So let's just mix it around and say it is true. And then although it doesn't really matter, but the name and the description is better to keep them the same, right? Keep them aligned with the task that you're actually working on, so that when you read it, it makes sense. Right? So going to change all of this. One more, there you go. And we call it question. And then this one saying want to answer. Okay. So, it's just a little bit of work, but it goes a long way. And then for the skip, so now here for the skip test, we will keep the same. Although inside is very likely the same piece of code, but when you're testing, you want to cover all the behavior, right? So it's your test should drive by behavior. It should not be driven by the implementation. Even to me, is even though you are writing unit test, right? Because the internal implementation can change. So today, when you're writing the code, they might rely on the same code. You end up with the same code, so that you repeating the code for different scenarios is looks like a waste. But what if tomorrow, a couple months later, when you look at the code again, and then there's an edge case, and then as you make the change, you refactor it so that they stop sharing the same code, right? Then if you do not have these tests that overlap each other for different scenarios, you will miss something. Right. So definitely keep, for me, it worthwhile to keep these tests. Right. So here, this is good. All the skip tests are already there, and then now the initial value. Let's we change this. Right, and then the question. Well, actually, the test will fail because these are looking for the answer have a color, right? Which in the actual one in this is actually does not. It actually looking for question is false. Right, by default they are false. And then these last one, let's set that to true, right? Because the initial will be true. So the same thing over here, true. And the same thing over here, true. Right, so the format value, now that is a this is a Boolean, right? And then this also shows that return Boolean is not assigned. Okay, over here it's saying it still say it is a string. So we need to take a quick look at that. So over here, this is a Boolean, right? So so if we force it to a string, then I have some other issue. So let's take a look. Initial are incompatible. Oh yes, of course. Set to true. Now that is gone. So to just make sure, if I do this, you see that TypeScript will show you that it is not assignable, right? Although over here the message is actually incorrect, right? The message is actually incorrect because we are in a confirm type. Is supposedly it should say that oh, at the end it does over here. So you can see this string is not assignable to no, this is wrong because this whole thing is Boolean. This whole thing is Boolean. Let me yeah. So this is completely wrong, right? Because what the TypeScript is saying that is expecting this whole thing to be a string, which is not true. What it is really expecting is the input is Boolean and the output is a string. Right? But well, that's why TypeScript try its best to give you a hint, but in this case, it's not doing the right thing. Right? So for us, we know. So that's why when we change it, then the error goes away. So that also iterate one important point is that at least to me, I always look at TypeScript as a tool more than a language, because to me that's what it is. And TypeScript try its best to figure out the type and help you in the IDE during compilation, so that it can catch as many error as possible and try to help you on the completion and all that, right? But the TypeScript would not know the full context of your application, because underlying under TypeScript is just JavaScript, and as a dynamic language, it is very hard for the compiler, the TypeScript compiler, to understand every single aspect and get it right. And in fact, we all know that TypeScript, the system is not completely sound, and even the flow type is not completely sound, although flow type try to focus on soundness of the type. So it's still a in progress piece of software or language, right? So I really personally, I really look forward for the next version of TypeScript, whether it will be a next language altogether, or it's just a couple major version down the road, so that they finally saying that, hey, we through this experiment of TypeScript, we knows a lot about how to type the a dynamic language and do the gradual typing and all that, and so it's time to fix some of the problem TypeScript inherently have, and try to make it even more useful than it is today. Right. So I definitely look forward to it. But as you can see, this is a good example showing that TypeScript doesn't know everything about your program, and you still at the center of the programming effort, right? You know, you are the one who's writing the code, right? So anyway, I sidetracked it a little bit. So let's go back to here. So this fixed this issue, and then also same for this, right? They are all Boolean. And then all of this is, let's actually do this. I like to do that. And then this blue is all changed to true. Get rid some of the errors. There you go. And then this prompt of string would be Boolean. All right. So the result is converted, and then in this case, just return it as is. I don't want to flip it and do any crazy thing. And in a sense, for Boolean, it's very unlikely you will be using this result function. It's there, right? It might be an interesting test to actually test and flip it and see if if it will actually honor it. Personally, I would, if I have full control of it, I would even take this result function away for confirm, because if you allow the result to be Boolean coming as true and then let it convert it and change it to false, it will confuse the heck out of the consumer, the user who is using the program that you wrote, right? But anyway, it's here. It's okay to keep it. And so I will. So for this, let's change to that. Also do this because, well, to me it looks nicer, although we are not displaying anything. Right, so now all of this is good. Just in case, let's just run the test. Right, so you see that you can use the intersection type to get the comment out of out of the subtype, and combine it with the base type and then share it like this. Which one is wrong? Confirm prompt expected. Oh, that's an error in the test. That's okay. Here, there you go. Question true. Right. So we should be good. Specify a validate function. Yeah, it's okay. Oh, there's still an error. Where is it? Here, one more. Question is true. Is that the last one? Come on. One more failing. Okay. There you go. Okay, so that's confirmed, right? It's much easier because we just basically just copy it. And then now the last one is the numeral. So the numeral, let's see, in the old one, does it show, it's a numeral? I guess that's what it is. I forgot, is that I added in or it was originally there. So let's change it first and then also test it here. Okay, there you go. So it is numeral. All right. And adding that is also the same, essentially. Right, it's just this, same thing. Numeral, and this is a number. And then over here is numeral question. Okay. So again, this all of those stays the same. And then here, the initial true. Oh. No, there you go. So initial, let's say it to 1, 2, 3. And then the question also go back up to the top. There you go. Too much again. There you go. So this, let's say, just keep it the same as the readme, and then also the message is enter a number. Okay, and then the initial return 1, 2, 3. This one return 1, 2, 3. This one return 1, 2, 3. And then over here, change this field from is boolean to is number. Is it? is number. So that change it. And then also here to number. So now, so you can see that the assert type from type plus is very useful, at least to me. So I can see what are all the errors, and from the errors I just update the code, and then that's it. For this example, using this conversion from Boolean to string works the same way for number, so the test pass. So, and of course, these questions is not. So we will see a whole bunch of failure. So only the first three is false, and the number should be 1, 2, 3. The default number is likely 0. Let's take a look. Yep, it's 0. Right, and then all these are 1, 2, 3. There you go. So now all of this pass. So let's go back here. So over here with the related prompt, we finished the input, numeral, and confirm. So the 3 base type. And then the password is a special type for input. And then we get into the array, which is select and all those things, right? So, but since array is a little bit more complicated, so let's work on the password first. So the password we know is the same as string, so we would reuse the test for input. Right, so then now you can see, well, not yet. There you go. Password. And then at the same time, we do the same thing, right? Password, and just take a look. So you see that the password, the value is masked, and then you get the answer, right? So now going to the type, this is very straightforward. So it will be the same, and I like to put it just sequentially after the numeral password, and this is password. And then we will see if there are any difference. If there's any difference. Okay, so here let's do the same thing again. Right. The name, color. There you go. Change it to password. State, they really should be the same. So let's just go ahead and the all the tests, the name follow message, right? That's how we organize it. So password, so that I can just move the cursor and make the change. If there's any problem, right, like this, we can easily go fix it. Because this has that problem because at the end it doesn't have the semicolon. So actually, let me add it in. So the next time I won't run into the same problem. Right, just add this in. this one already have it. The numeral one, this one also already have it. Okay, then we're good. So now the question though is, of course, will the test pass? Because it's essentially the same as the input. The only difference is the formatting on the UI. And I'll always forget about that, but that's okay. It's a very easy fix, fixing the test. So when it is empty, it's empty. So actually, I don't even need to do that. I can just make sure that this is the first test. Yes. So just change all of this. Change this to question. Okay, because our password can be blue. Don't care. Right. So question. Why did I do question? Undo. Password. There you go. That's more like it. Right. And it's the same thing. Although the test is the same, right? It's just changing a few words here and there. Besides that, it's identical to input type, but I will keep them in there, right? So that when things change, we were able to catch the difference. Of course, there should have additional tests compare just the input if we look at the whole test in general, right? So for the input prompt, we need to make sure have a test to make sure the rendered string when user typing in, it should show star instead of the print text, right? But in here for testing the type, we don't really concern about that. Right, and there should be some tests elsewhere handling that. Okay, that's very easy. The last one, hey, this invisible. Right, hides it from terminal and return a string. Right, so in this case, let's test it again. Test it first. Invisible, and run it, and I type it shows nothing, and then do the same, and then return the result. So that again is identical. So just copy and paste. Right. So someone, always, when how should I say it? A lot of people thinks that adding tests extra work. And you can see that yes, it's extra work, but it's really not as many as you might imagine, because you have to test it by hand anyway, right? And to make sure that the code is working. And if you're doing that, how much more time it takes you to actually write the test instead of testing it by hand. Depends on the, of course, the answer for that depends on the environment and the setup you have. Do you have invest in the past to get the all the things that you need there to begin with? But if you have some basic stuff there, it's not that much. And when you actually start rolling, start adding more and more tests, it definitely saves you more time. because it would catch so many things that you would otherwise miss. And don't think, don't you ever think that those are extra work, right? Those are not extra work. Those are things that you mess up, right? You mess up, and so you need to go fix it. And I have heard horror story that some engineer actually go and remove some tests because they break it. And I was saying, well, what do you want me to respond to that? Right? If the test is no longer valid, yes, of course, go ahead and delete it. But at least I very likely I won't just delete it. I would at least take a look at the use case and see what's right, what is the correct test, and fix the test. All right. Anyway, so now we have do all that, and then over here is the same thing. Invisible. And then this will add it in. Let's see how far we're at. We are at 96 columns, column 96. So let's make that a new line. Actually, over here, this is column 79. So actually, let's do it over here. Invisible question. Okay. So now the test should pass. It's the same thing. So the question you might ask at this point is, hey, if the input password and invisible, and I misspell invisible. There you go. Oh, come on. Invisible. Why don't you just put them together, right? You can definitely do this, right? Password or invisible, like that. So it's a personal taste, right? You can definitely do that, and it will save you some space and all that. And so you might, but personally, I would like to separate them because the effort of having additional types is not that bad, and also the names tell me clearly what they are. So if you do this, right? If you do this, what should I call this question? I need to this type. I need to think about some kind of generic name for all those three choices, and then that's just, to me, is a waste of my brain power, because instead of doing that, let me just do all three, and then I know exactly what I'm looking at. And also, if the user, when they use the question, if ever they need to explicitly reference this type, they also don't need to guess, because no matter what kind of generic name I come up with, right over here, the user will probably need to also spend some brain power to figure out what do I mean with that generic name, right? So keeping them separate like this is better. So the same thing, this is the same applied when to overloads, function overloads, because when you're overloading the functions, how do you name the parameters, right? How to name the parameters? Say that let's sidetrack a little bit. So say I have a function called foo, right? It's take no, foo is a bad one. Let's see. Oh, okay. Say authenticate. right? Authenticate. And then the easier one is you can pass in a username, you can pass in a password, right? It's a string. And then besides that, you can have it to take in a number if it is a token, or maybe you can skip the whole thing if this is a key. So what I mean is, if I do separate the signature using overloads, right, like this, then I can say, oh, in one scenario, this is a key. In one scenario, this is required, this is a password. And then the last one, this is a pin, which is a number, like this. Right? Of course, this let's say is a boolean. Right? So it's a boolean, and then this return a boolean. Return false. Right. So of course, the last one over here, this will be something of generic, some argument that you need to figure out what the name is. But when you read this code, read these overloads, and you use it, right? When you authenticate, when you use it, you know very clearly what they are for, right? What do they mean, and what you are expect me, the user of your code, to put in, right? But if you just putting them together like this, forget about this, like this, you need to put in, how do you name the variable? Username or key, and then this is password or pin, right? And then when you do that, does it mean that, oh, when I passing in a key, I can still pass in a password because this is just optional? Now, what does it mean, right? So when you're writing your code, and remember, again, for me, the TypeScript and all this overload, all this stuff are tools to help me writing code and help people understanding the code, right? So if the code is not better understandable by adding all these things in, what's the point, right? If you're writing in JavaScript, right? If you're writing in JavaScript, then you have to do it like this. What else can you what else can you do? All right, you can provide the default value like that, right? And so it will be very, very confusing, right? And then what the only thing you can do is start adding in some comments. But even the comments, who really spend that much time to read the comments, right? So, and it can go outdated and all that, right? That's why for me is it doesn't make much sense to not writing in TypeScript. So anyway, I digress, and now let's go back to here. So this is invisible. We have finished that. So what's next? So we cover all these four, right? The input, confirm, numeral, password, and also the invisible. So all these are done. Right? I just click it full so that to see I have not missed anything. So all these 5 are done. Now, these we can work on the more complicated thing, right? The quiz, survey, select, those are relate to array, and I would try to stay away from it as much as possible for now to keep things going. And so this toggle would be interesting. So let's take a look. So nope, yep. So enable, disable. So this is essentially a Boolean with just a fixed a different description besides yes and no, and then you can select using your arrow key and so on. So let's take a look at that. Where am I? Control save. Okay. Come back. Okay. Let's clean this up. Control C. I always tend to do that. Okay, don't mess up the code. At this stage, I should have committed, but it's okay. Let's keep going. So we know that it is a Boolean, so we can copy from the confirm prompt. Right. So let's copy it. Make sure that the align looks nice, and this is toggle. Toggle, and then the name is, it doesn't have an example over here, so want to answer is the same, and let's keep it question, right? So with this message, and so we just want to go ahead and add that to variable in here. Enabled is yep, and disabled is nope. So okay, we have add that in. So now that's it. So definitely this is extend from confirm. So it's toggle, and this is toggle. Right. Toggle question. And so we have this additional enabled is a string, and disabled string. Okay. So of course that would just work. Let me run the test. While the test is running, I want to set up my next step. Right. So the test is passed as expected. And the question is, are they optional? Right. So let's see. So node test.js. Yep, they are optional because by default it's no or yes. No is false and yes is true. Right. So we need to make this optional. That's easy. And then let's also see that if the optional, if this is support, do they support functions? Right. So seems like they do not, right? This just to string of that is not what it is. So let's see. Did it describe it over here? Seems like it does not, right? Seems like it does not. So that's why we have to actually try it out to figure it out. And I would assume it's the same for disabled. And yeah, the disabled also only accept a string. Okay. So, well, we are done with this one. Okay, easy. So we go back over here in the README. We can see the toggle, well, by the readme, that's all it has. So it's related to this sort. So let's go take a look at it. So they allow the user to sort items in a list. And then the answer is an array. Actually, this is, yeah, it's array. And then select, list, all that. Let's see if there is any other thing that is still the base type without getting to the array first. Here it has the footer, but it doesn't have the header. All right. No, I don't know. Over here, this base of is a username and password. Show password true. Answer, well, I don't know what's that. So let's take a look. Base, because I just try to find all the still find all the one that is not array. Oh, damn it. Basic off. Default implementation authentication function in basic of blah 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 blah. That's okay. This should be basic off, I guess. And then it have this message. And the name, let's keep it as password. Username ABC. Oh, ABC. So please enter your password. Password equal to false. What do you mean? Authenticate function in basic office compare the username and password. It read with the value supplied. Oh, okay. So then it's then this is actually confusing. Use the name as, yeah, it's actually this, right? This make much more sense. Just enter your password. I can buy with that, but I would probably say username and password, right? And then this is RAJAT-SR, and then RAJAT-SR, and then the password is 123, and then authenticate is equal to true. That's how it should be work. And then show password. Show password is true. Does it show? Yeah, it does. So if I say this is false, it should make it star. Okay. All right. So now I understand a little bit more about how this works, and since this is still just a boolean, right? So let's do this. And the type is basic off. Right. I'm just going to use the same thing, and then the show password is extra. Well, let's just add that in. Well, before that, I need to copy. So we have 4 minutes left. So let's try to get this done. Basic off. These three are the same. Keep going, keep going, keep going. One more. There you go. Right, and I copy this and then I paste. There you go. And then the show password at a semicolon, let a comma, so we are good. And then is copy from confirm. This is basic of question. Basic of. Right, so that, and then it has a username. It must be present. The password also, it must be present. And then there's a show password is optional and is a boolean. Right. So let's change this. Authenticate it. Go away. Let's just type it. Too long to go up and down. Okay, and I misspelled something. Is that right? Oh no, false is true. False is true. I didn't misspell. It's just that I didn't put in the value, and then it does not take initial. Or not. This is authenticate. Expect is true. The actual is false. Yeah. So specify initial value does not apply. Okay. So let's take a look again. Specify format function on all of this is failed the same way. Right. So specify initial value. Let's just focus on this first. Just make sure that it is what I'm suspecting, that the initial is actually not a valid input for this. Right. It kind of makes sense, right? It's you're trying to authenticate. You don't want to authenticate it by default. So, well, to test it, actually, I should put it over here. Show password false, doesn't really matter. Initial is true. If I do this, it's still false, right? Which completely makes sense, right? So this, the basic form doesn't take initial. If that is the case, I would try to take away the initial from the basic of. One of the things I can do is that partial pick from typescript, but again, not going to use it. Although I have added in, but I only add in for the test, and I'm expect to take it away when we convert the test back to JavaScript. Right, so I can't really use it in the type itself because the type, if you use it, you need to include it. So, well, seems like the most obvious solution is to extract this out and put into all others. But then you can see that the initial, there's a type. So that's just a lot of work. So now this becomes some interesting thing, right? So let's talk about this a little bit, although it's already at the 1 hour mark. So let's finish this discussion and then call the end for this this session. So there are several ways to handle this, right? The first thing is the first way, just like what I just showed. Just grab this, remove it, put it to the detail for each type, right? That is kind of the cleanest. Although you have to deal with the type over here, you have to unwind it. So for the Boolean, it will be Boolean. For string, it will be Boolean string and the number and so on, right? And the same for array. Right. So another way is to like using some higher level type function like the require actually omit partial omit to skip this type, skip this property altogether from this. So in typepress there is a if I recall correctly, omit pick. And then when you do that, and over here, then you can specify initial. Then it will remove this type from the whole type question. That would work too, although it would and it would be the my choice, because well I wrote that function for a reason. However, there is a little bit of drawback, because the type can quickly get very complicated, right? Because that type internally is doing a lot of things. So you can see over here, this is already very simple. As you can see, it's just a generic with a bunch of functions and stuff. But if you look at this, it's already have a lot more and a lot of things. And then TypeScript already need to abbreviate things to make it reasonably readable, if that's a word. So if I use that, it will be even more complicated. And essentially, you won't able to just read the type and try to figure out what it does. You have to look at the source. So that's definitely one disadvantage using higher level types to do type manipulation. But it works, and it works as long as TypeScript supported and you are not using any too fancy of a hack or workaround or things like that. Because when you do that, when TypeScript upgrade, it might break the behavior that you try to rely on. Right. So my 2 cents is don't try to be too smart. Don't try to be too smart about it. But again, in this case, I will definitely use it. I have that function. But since I'm not able to, I have to either put it there, or maybe I have to further extract this to 2 types. And that's likely what I'm going to do. So although the names start getting a little bit messy, typed, let's see, with initial. And then I compose and get a base type of just type question without the initial. And then this will be initial and type question T and like that. Right, so this still maintain it, and then this will just get to the base. And you will see that if there are more variations, this will get unwindy quickly. Right, and so this is kind of a price to pay for inheritance in general. Although this is what we're showing here is still just composition, not inheritance, but it have the same characteristics. Right, so but for now, this is okay, and then we can definitely keep that. So now you go back here, we see that this initial is not really a valid property that we can remove. And of course, when we remove it, the test, we need to figure out how the test go. And because that is more mechanic and than anything valuable in terms of education and learning. So I'll probably do that off the video, off the camera. So anyway, so that's it for this video. So let's recap. What have we learned? Right, we learned that for one, adding more tests is not that scary, right? And then again, that's because I add a whole lot of tests, and while a lot of them are essentially the same, but when we add tests, we should focus on behavior, right? Not just the implementation, right? We really should put on different hats when we are writing tests. Right? When you switch, when you do, say, you do TDD, right? The red-green refactoring. When you change your hats from the implementer to the tester, you need to really put on a different hat and think of the problem differently. Right? And that's how you would make the TDD works and also make the test worthwhile for you. Because if not, you would just start writing tests and then it's not catching anything meaningful because you test what you have written. Right? Of course, that means you're not following TDD. You just try to do the implementation first, and then you should try to write the test to confirm what you just wrote. Right? And so that's why, depends on the case. A lot of time TDD is pretty useful. So so that's one. The second one, well, as again, copying the test is not that hard. Adding more tests is not that hard. The third thing is the types. I just used composition, use union types to expand it, and instead of combining all this literal, the input password, is that input password invisible together, or although they are identical, I don't do that. So I get a concisely named type that I can reuse, and I don't have to go back and think about what the name should be and decipher what the name when I read it. Right. And then the last thing is, I'll talk about this, how when there are minor difference, what can you do? The library I wrote, typescript, have some higher level type manipulation function, allow you to pick out things and do things like that. So I would choose to do that. If not, it's just basic programming maneuver, right? Move the stuff to the subtype or the subclass if you want, and then or extract it, like this, from the superclass to further down deeper superclass, and then reuse it. So that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it and hope you learned something. And we will see you in the next one. All right, bye bye.